member of our who helps run our chapter of the group tried to think of like these use cases of someone who's in the area. So like, someone who's going to the gym, someone who's going to a cafe, a parent, someone with mobility needs. So a bicyclist coming off the Burke Gilman. So these were all strategies that we had. So this is an example of our initial outreach that we sent to various businesses that we just sort of cold emailed them this outreach email. And one thing that we wanted to focus on was coming to them with an actionable plan about what it is that we were trying to get done there, and then what it is that we wanted to get from them. So to try to limit the number of back and forth emails that we had to have before we could get to these actionable items that we were requesting from them. So one of our plan here was to outline what it is we were hoping to get done, and then to ask them if we could have their support, and then use their business logo and potentially a statement from them to help build out a web page on the Greenways site to share with some decision makers in SDOT, City Council, etc. And so, like, I guess one of our points here is that maybe it seems a little bit scary or uncertain to reach out to businesses, but like you really should just do it. And I think we got lucky perhaps with a lot of the businesses that we reached out to, but like overwhelmingly we got positive responses from them. And even this is an example from Seawolf, who had actually said that they had been interested in a crosswalk years ago and had reached out to SDOT and hadn't gotten any success, and they'd love to like lend their name to our formal request, and they give a nice statement as well.
I'm wondering if you know whether the number of times SDOT says no is captured in their data. Right, so it seemed like if you got a really fast response, right, then they must have, there's got to be either a person or a bot with a map that's like, if it's in here, if it's in a highlighted section, say maybe, and if it's not, immediately say no, right?
Yeah.
That seemed to, do they count the number of times they say no? Because that seems like it is a demand indicator.
Yeah.
I really don't know much about what goes on at
Okay.
SDOT behind the scenes, to be honest. I know there's a session on it, on how to get things done at SDOT later, but
Right.
yeah.
Thanks.
So yeah, we got a bunch of responses like this from local businesses, the schools, and residents as well. So we started to consolidate all of that into like a succinct web page, and we even, one of the businesses, Evo, actually drew up a like more official looking diagram of the proposed changes that we wanted. So they were really like helping to drive this stuff, and the businesses also like fed off of one another. So like Evo is the official like landlord of the building that Brooks is in, and they connected us with Brooks, and Brooks helped us with that as well. And I think Evo has some connection to the climbing gym, and they connected us with them. So yeah, it sort of created this ecosystem of stakeholders who are helping us accomplish our goal. Yeah.
Is it helpful to use businesses that support communities as a way to gather signatures? So for example, speaking of the bouldering project, a lot of people pass through that would probably be interested in signing like a build a crosswalk here.
Yeah.
That's a great segue.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there was one more question?
Yeah, I was going to ask off of what you were saying. Like, how did you meet these businesses? Was it a lot of word of mouth from other businesses, or did you just follow?
In our case, it was really mostly email driven. We did meet with them in person a few times. I think after hearing you talk, I was kind of wishing that we had done more in-person outreach. But you know, they were also seemed to be pretty receptive by email. So yeah.
Maybe you'll get to this, but I was curious, you're talking about businesses talking to each other. How did you facilitate that? Was it like an open email thread or like a...
We didn't really. I think it came about mainly because there's something called Evolution Projects, which is related to, I think it has the same owner as Evo, but they were the landlord actually for basically that whole new Brooks area, which has the climbing gym. Is Seawolf, is that Seawolf.
Yeah, I think the Seawolf building and Old
Seawolf-
Salt is part of their
Yeah.
real
So
estate.
so a lot of the businesses that we were talking, it turned out that they had the same landlord, and that
Yeah.
landlord, I guess, happened to be very supportive of this. So I think we got lucky in that regard. But yeah, that's sort of how they were all talking to each other. So I want to leave some time for questions at the end. So let me go through this really quickly. And this is a very brief timeline sort of what happened with this project. But at every step, I'm just going to highlight how the business support really helped. So the first thing, as Eli mentioned, is that we made this website that had testimonials from a bunch of these businesses. One of them is at the right, and they were really compelling, right? They were saying stuff like, we've seen this need for so long, we've seen all these near misses, and that was very helpful already. One of these businesses connected us with actually the person that was hit at this intersection was one of their employees who was walking to work, right? And so now we also have a testimonial from them because the business got us in touch with their employee, who was hit walking to work. As someone mentioned, we made this petition, not just for businesses, but for anyone walking around. And, we had it up on a few telephone poles. And then at some point we got Seattle Bouldering Project to put it up. And all of a sudden, we got a few hundred more signatures like within a few days, because it was really immediate as soon as it went up in SPP that, we got a lot of support. We then contacted City Council and SDOT with a nice letter that had all these logos from businesses and some of their testimony, which I think was really compelling to show sort of this broad support in addition to the community support that we had. So one business actually helped us set up a meeting with SDOT, right? Because they had been working with SDOT with some construction impacts, so they sort of knew someone to talk to. Turned out that was kind of the wrong person to be talking to, but that person told us to talk to someone else, who told us to talk to someone else. And basically it was honestly like several months of that, but eventually we found the right person to talk to. I wanted to share one anecdote really quick, which was I was emailing someone, a city council person, multiple times and wasn't really hearing back. And then at some point I just CC'd several of these businesses that had been supportive and that were already mentioned in our letter. But as soon as I did that, I got a call from that city council person's chief of staff within 30 minutes, right? So I think it matters to decision makers. And finally, the businesses also reached out to City Council directly and wrote things like this, which I think were really compelling asks of decision makers. We are the sort of result so far that we have is that, as I mentioned, a lot of sort of being pinged around at SDOT, but in the end they did do a traffic study there, and they've said that they want to improve crossings, not just at this intersection, but also at many other places along Stone Way. And so this is sort of in their budget plan for 2026, and we're sort of just waiting for that. So still ongoing. Hopefully it really happens, but it's looking good. So really quick, I think to wrap up with lessons before hopefully taking more questions. It really doesn't hurt to ask, as Eli said, the worst they say is no, or maybe you hear more about their concerns and why they might oppose the project, which is also super valuable. McCaela pointed out that engaging early really helps, because I think you said that knowing, you don't want them to just all of a sudden build a bike lane in front of their business and they never heard about it and that kind of thing. It helps to have them engaged in the process all the way through. Having a plan or a specific ask when you reach out is really helpful, because that way these people are busy and they know how they can help. Listening to their needs and inviting them to brainstorm solutions really helps, because I don't know if you noticed, but in one of our outreaches they said we really like the crosswalk idea. We don't know if a stop sign makes sense, stuff like that. Allowing them to express sort of what they think would work, so that they feel listened to. And then keep businesses in the loop. You know, this is kind of, we were surprised at how often the businesses were able to contribute something, whether it was a contact at SDOT or, you know, putting up the flyer, but keeping them in the loop of how things are progressing was really helpful for us. Yeah, so we have a few more minutes for any other questions. Yeah.
I'm just curious, you might have mentioned it already, but did you get any people that were against the idea, and why, other than like stop sign versus crosswalk? I mean,
Yeah, not that I can remember. We didn't get replied to by every business,
oh,
but
okay.
sort of feels like they just weren't on top of their emails, etc.
Yeah, I think we were a little lucky. I feel like everyone I talked to about having a crosswalk there, like no matter who it is, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. So maybe we just picked a very sort of obvious need, but yeah.
Maybe for McCaela, I saw your questionnaire.
Yeah.
That you did really fast. Have you experimented at all with kind of like push questions? I saw that they were all pretty neutral. Was that
Yeah.
like a strategy, or did you ever do those?
Yes, we were not there to convince. We were there to collect information. And so that, I think, is oftentimes the dynamic of like, I'm coming out here to tell you, like, you really should care about street safety, and let me help you understand why. And that really wasn't it. It was more of like, where are y'all coming from? What's your contact information? Who are the supporters or the movable middle that we might want to like reach out to again? Who has great stories to tell? Maybe they could be a good spokesperson. And so you're not you're not going to convince the person who hates bike lanes to all of a sudden love the bike lane.
Yeah.
And that type of engagement can just be really toxic.
Yeah.
Troy, I'm just going to make a note that Troy's going around. We made a handout that has kind of a little bit of some tips that we provided today, not all of them. And I think the script maybe was more for in-person engagement than an email. But I still have a whole inventory of like everything, every resource, every report that people wrote, the database, and so our contact information is on there, and I am more than happy to be a resource to folks. I haven't done this work in a long time. I think I left that job in 2018. So, but I still care about safe streets a lot, and I'm happy to be a resource.
There was a question.
Yeah, I was curious. So the Pike Pine project, I think, was like a different scale and scope than what you folks were working on. But McCaela mentioned that in addition to business outreach, you tried to get on the bike master plan and secure some funding. I'm curious if you folks were considering that for your project as well.
Yeah, so I think I don't know all the details of how this works at SDOT, but I think basically what we did was get SDOT to go out and do like a traffic study, and then they, based on that, did decide that it's part of their, I'm not sure if it's part of the pedestrian master plan or something else, but it was part of their planning for 2026. So yeah, like we had talked about whether we needed to apply for some other funding source, but as far as we know right now, it's part of what they're setting aside money for. So.
And they did sort of beef up the asks, honestly. Like we didn't ask for pedestrian islands, but they said they're going to put that there, and curb bulbs. And we're still going back and forth with them about what the actual final state will look like. But that was like a nice. Once they had decided to fund it, it was nice that they were not just doing the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Did you guys go out and like stand at the corner and click how many times people missed, or did you? Because you said SDOT went out and did a traffic study. So in my group, should we go out and have to prove that, or do we just go to SDOT and say you do it if you're the expert?
So we talked about doing that many times, and we've done it anecdotally many times. But
they didn't care.
What we were told by other people in our group was that in the past, when they've done that, SDOT hasn't really seriously considered because it's an unofficial count, and so I still think it might have been helpful to have as like a data point for for talking to council or something like that. But we were also sort of told that the anecdotes are almost more compelling. So yeah, I think it would have been a good idea, and we should probably do it. But getting SDOT to do it themselves, I think, needed to happen either way. Is what we were told. Yeah.
If there's no businesses on the corner that needs help, but a lot of traffic, could you like stand on the corner and just do a personal, like a petition to SDOT and contact like, you know, people that walk through there and bike through there? And I mean, do you suggest that? There are apartments on the corners.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it might be hard to contact them or just leave a flyer or something.
Yeah, I
Do
mean,
you have experience with that?
yeah, so we did, that was sort of the petition element, which we didn't talk about as much because this was supposed to be about business outreach, but yeah, I think Eli sort of framed it as like community, like business is one element, maybe schools is another element, you know, just neighbors and people are another element, but I think showing support from all of those is important for sure.
Yeah, I think they all offer like the unique perspective that matters, so.
So I want to thank our presenters today. We're at time here, but thank you, McCaela, thank you, Ben, thank you, Eli, and thank all of you for coming today. There's a 15-minute break before session 2, so right here will be Tech